Hi, my name is Harold Jarkey, and I'd like to welcome you to our online personal knowledge management workshop, which is run out of the Social Learning Center, and you can see the address at the top. If you want to get a hold of me, all of my contact information is on my website at jarkey.com. This presentation is designed as an overview for participants in our 2-week workshop. For me, personal knowledge management is the key to social learning. It is what we do as individuals so that we can contribute collectively to social learning in the workplace, in our communities, or wherever else we are active. Now, when I look at PKM, look at the 3 words there, and that personal means that it's up to you as an individual what you do and how you engage. It's not something that can be directed, and there's no way that an organization can have a blanket type of personal knowledge management that works for everyone. In terms of knowledge, what I think is really important is the notion of connecting information to experience. It's about know what, know who, know how to do. So it's actually about doing. So using knowledge to enable you to do something. And management is not about being managed, but about managing your own knowledge to get things done. Now, for me, I think that the 2 big things about PKM are that, first of all, it saves you time, and secondly, it can save you a lot of money in terms of professional development, because there are so many good resources available online. It's just a question of knowing where to connect and how to connect. I'd like to note that my own inspiration for personal knowledge management started in 2004, particularly the work by Lilia Efimova, who still does some blogging and is on Twitter. You just have to search for Mathemagenic and you will find her work. And this is one of the early graphic images that Lilia used to explain her notion of PKM. Now, PKM is quite different from knowledge management, particularly the knowledge management of the 80s and 90s, where we put lots of things into big databases. And the notion of DIKW came out: data, information, knowledge, and wisdom, that one begat the other. And I like to use an example, it's not the only example, of another way to look at knowledge. And this is from Nick Milton, who blogs a lot about knowledge management practices, and I'd recommend his blog. Just search for his name or follow him on Twitter. And the notion that data and information require someone with some experience to put those together and then to create knowledge as a personal activity from which we then drive our decisions and our actions. And Nick goes on further to show how that knowledge, which then drives decisions and actions, is our performance at work, and that we close the loop by reflecting and analyzing how well we did so that we can inform future experiences and continuously build our knowledge. So that when you look at wisdom, is that wisdom comes from reflection after taking action. Looking historically on how we as a society tried to transfer wisdom, was that usually it was a wise person or a master who, through narrative and mentoring, would work with apprentices, and over a long period of time, some of that knowledge would get passed on. As we got other types of communication media, we symbolized that wisdom and passed that on to the masses, particularly with things like books. However, as anyone knows, is that a chef can write a recipe book and someone can read it, but that does not make that person a chef. So the framework that I came up with was based on 3 words with alliteration so that they can be remembered: seek, sense, and share. And this is only one model. Always remember that all models are flawed, but some are useful. So seeking is what I think is very important, to seek out interesting people, probably people more so than actual sources of information now, and to constantly be curious. So seeking tools is that there are judgment-based ways of seeking in terms of me just making a decision, finding experts, or actually connecting to networks of experts, which now is much more easier. And then there are also mechanical tools that can be used. Heuristical tools like Dig and StumbleUpon, which rate favorites and views and how many people thought that a piece of information was good, or the ubiquitous algorithmic Google based upon their secret sauce algorithm. Sense making is linked, I think, inextricably to critical thinking, so that in making sense of what we see, we have to actively observe, we have to study, we have to challenge other people's thoughts, we have to challenge our own thinking and our own assumptions, we have to constantly evaluate these, and we have to be actively engaged in our own thinking processes. This here shows a number of the tools that can be used connecting Seek, Sense, Share with the critical thinking activities. You can pause the video here, take a look at it, come back to it, and there's also a detailed graphic available in the resources for the workshop. In sense making, I think it's really important to find an expression medium that works for you. In my case, it's blogging. Some people find Twitter really good. Others use tools like Tumblr. There are some new social media platforms like Pinterest coming out that have a lot of activity on them. But you need to find some way of actually doing something. I think that's a critical part, is doing something, not just thinking about it, but actually doing something with that knowledge. So 5 ways that we can make sense, and we'll go through these in much more detail in the workshop. Filtering, validation, synthesis, presentation, and customization comes from Ross Dawson. He talks about it in more detail, and we can discuss that. And these are 5 examples. There are many other ways in which we can make sense. Of course, what's really important is sharing, and we have to find people who share our passions by engaging in publishing, commenting, and participating online. So Seek, Sense, Share of PKM. We seek using mechanical and human filters and aggregators to pull and sometimes have information pushed to us. We make sense through a number of activities, filtering, validating, synthesizing, presenting, or customizing. And then we share, and that process of narration done in a transparent way enhances the whole serendipity, serendipitous connections of, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know about that. And the more that we connect out there, then the more serendipitous opportunities we have. Or as Stephen Berlin Johnson, the writer, says, chance favors the connected mind. And here's another mind map that links these things together. You can pause here, take a look at it in detail, and of course these are available as resources in the online workshop. So I would say that PKM is our part of the social learning contract. If we don't participate in the network, we can't benefit from the network. And that the network itself, with all of us participating, is much more powerful than us working on these things alone. So how do you take the first step? I suggest usually starting with 3 relatively simple types of tools and sense-making ways. One is by what I call freeing your bookmarks, getting them off of an individual computer and getting them out. And these can be, this is like that collection of resources of stuff that most of us collect. And you can use tools like Digo or Delicious or the more powerful Evernote. And we can talk about these specific tools during the workshop. I also think that using some kind of an aggregator makes a lot of sense, whether it be Google Reader, iGoogle, or something else. And then, of course, getting started in the process of narrating and participating online. Platforms like Twitter or Yammer are a lot simpler and easier to get started with, in my opinion, than blogging. Some people might progress on to blogging afterwards, but using these activity streams is a really good start, I think. Beth Cantor took my Seek, Sense, Share model and built upon it, and she talks about some ways, some daily routines that people can use, take up between 90 and 120 minutes per day. Take a look at this, see whether or not this makes sense to you, try it out, see how things work. Because that's what it's all about, is this aspect of learning out loud and sharing with others what we've done and what we're learning as we go along. Now you might ask, how do I get time to do all of this? Well, data show that we waste at work about 50% of our time. And these activities here, like managing unwanted communications, finding people, information, scheduling meetings, are all things that social media can help us do. Well, by using the same social media tools for our personal learning, we can reduce this wasted time and we can make time so that we can do activities that are much better for us, much better for our own learning and for our own professional development. So reduce the wasted time and replace it with PKM activities. And finally, just summing everything up, one way of looking at PKM is I seek, I sense, I share my ideas, we all use and share these ideas together as we connect to networks, And what emerges from this is the whole notion of enhanced serendipity as we connect better together, which enables us to cooperate and collaborate. And I look forward to discussing all of these during our 2-week online workshop. Thanks very much.